Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our community meeting for Farm Reconstruction project. I'm Mayor Susan Sample, and I can assure you I am standing up. You may not be able to see me, but I'm going to make this quick because this is flood control's presentation. I want to start though by thanking Harris County Flood Control District under the leadership of Dr. Kenneth Peterson, partnering with us to host this important meeting. I'd also like to recognize my fellow council members and their support for this project, Mayor Pro Tem John Barnes, council members Clay Brett, Kaylee Rainsberger, and John Burkeen. As many, probably most of you in this room know, this project has been in the making for over 20 years, and one I've been passionate about since my first term on City Council in 2011. The performance and maintenance of our infrastructure has always been one of my top priorities. Our forefront ditch is unique because it's not ours, it's the county's. This is when local, state, and federal officials have the opportunity to work together and show what can be achieved when we share a common goal. So now I'd like to recognize the elected officials who supported this project and worked to secure nearly $33 million in funding for this regional stormwater project. Thank you to Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher, Representatives Ann Johnson, State Senator Joan Huffman, who's now former senator, and now Houston Mayor John Whitmire, and also Southside Place Mayor Andy Chan, and we appreciate everyone's continued partnership. So I know everyone here is eager to hear the updates on Ford Farm, and we're pleased to have leadership and engineers and a full house from Harris County Flood Control District to share the latest on the project. After Flood Control's presentation, we'll move to an open house format where tables will be stacked outside, as you saw, in the hallway, with subject matter experts to help you learn more about the project and answer questions that matter to you and your family. So now I'm going to turn this over to Harris County Flood Control and introduce Scott Elmer, the Chief Partnerships and Programs Officer.
Thank you, Mayor. And I also need to apologize to everybody because you're stuck with me tonight instead of Dr. Peterson. She had another conflict, so y'all get me. But Dr. Peterson does express her regrets that she's not able to be here on this very, very important project for us. So, first, we appreciate the community's long-standing patience and understanding as we collaborated on this project. The project's been going on for a long time. We got to the point where we're out for bids for the project, but there are three main takeaways we'd like to talk to you about tonight. Take nothing else from the presentation, take these items. As the mayor said, we have an open house. We're going to answer questions in detail. We'll give you an overview with our presentation, but the most important news, the biggest takeaway, is construction will start this year on this project. We're shooting for this summer on the project. You'll also see in the presentation and at the table that we have made changes to the design based upon feedback from this community. We'll also continue to collect the feedback tonight. There are comment cards on the table, and as much as possible, we will try and engage it. We also have to incorporate other feedback, and we also have other engagement activities planned. And finally, another important component of the project is the funding that we have received, as the mayor has mentioned, and I think it bears us repeating this funding. The project has always been contingent upon funding. We now have about $33 million in place. The design is finalized, and as I mentioned, we are out for bids on this project. On behalf of the Flood Control District, I do like to repeat what the mayor said. State Representative Ann Johnson, State Senator Joan Huffman, former State Senator, now Mayor John Whitmire, and Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher have all been very, very critical in securing funding for this project. We also, in addition to the federal and state support, the project has also funded local sponsors, including funding from the Harris County Flood Control District 2018 bond program and contributions from each of the cities, West University Place and Southside Place. So again, thank y'all so much for the community being here tonight. Thanks to Mayor Sample and her team and her city council for the collaboration and partnership on this. And I would like to turn this over to Ms. Emily Waddell.
Otherwise we'll get stuck. Hi y'all, thanks for being here tonight. It's good to see some familiar faces. I know we've had some conversations with some of you before, but we really want to dive in and share a little bit of information about this super complex project. We'll dive into the presentation. So I'm sure y'all know, but Poor Farm Ditch is a tributary to Brays Bayou. And as Mayor Sample mentioned, it was built almost 75 years ago, and it was one of the earliest and one of the few concrete lined channels in Harris County. So here we are many years later, and Poor Farm Ditch has reached a really critical point in its life cycle. And that's common with infrastructure that we see across the county. It eventually reaches a point when major repairs are needed or an upgrade to newer standards is in order. And as the previous speakers alluded to, this project has a long history, but the most recent important step was made in 2023 when there was an interlocal agreement signed between Harris County Flood Control District, West University Place, and Southside Place to move this project forward. And that really got us to where we are today. So the last time we were here was in April 2024, and we had shared the 90% design on this project. We gathered your feedback on thoughts and concerns, and since then we've had a lot of conversations both with residents and with your elected officials. So I want to start with some drone footage of the channel. I think this aerial view really helps to kind of show the project and really why it's important. I don't have to tell y'all that this area has long been vulnerable to flooding, and this drainage infrastructure is really key in reducing that risk. But as you can see on the video, this is a really constrained corridor. It's surrounded by homes and community infrastructure, and there's very little wiggle room on either side of the channel. And that reality really made this a difficult project to design from the outset. Every decision had to balance our goal, which is reducing flood risk, with reducing impacts to the community. So what I can tell you is that the reconstructed portion of the ditch will be wider and deeper, which increases its ability to move stormwater efficiently and gives us the needed access for maintenance going into the future. Our goal is to accommodate larger rain events safely within the channel. In simple terms, today the channel that you see here handles about a 10-year storm event. After construction, it will be able to accommodate a 50-year storm event. Think of it like upgrading from a garden hose to a fire hose. So since we were here in April 2024, we've worked really closely with everybody to finalize a design that fits each specific and unique section of the channel. I know a lot of folks are familiar with this, but I'm going to give a little bit of history on how we got here. So over time, the concrete lining has deteriorated and buckled, as you can see here, at several locations, including this segment. Further deterioration could create failures, leading to additional negative impacts to both Westview and Southside Place. The buildup of debris and vegetation along the channel has also impacted its drainage capacity. And part of the issue there is our inability to get to the channel itself. Our access for maintenance is incredibly restricted, and part of this project is rectifying that issue. Eventually, we'll have roughly equal access on both sides of the channel, from the Westview side and the Southside Place side. So to reduce flood risk, Poor Farm Ditch needs to function predictably and reliably. Again, our goal is to move stormwater out of this area and safely down to Brays Bayou. And to do so in a way where we're not just transferring that flood risk. One of the big things about the Flood Control District is that we're a no adverse impact agency, which means we can't take your flood risk and give it to somebody else just as much as we can't take theirs and give it to you. We have to have a net neutral benefit. So back in 2024, the community provided some strong feedback that really helped us evolve the design. Some of the key points were construction impacts and schedule, encroachment, drainage, grading, security, and fencing. And that input really helped shape where we are today. So since spring 2024, we've made a lot of progress, but transparently, as I said earlier, This is an incredibly complex effort, and it has taken time for us to really refine things. So we've met with stakeholders and continued to refine the design, but the changes we made were based on updated survey data, a lot-by-lot analysis, and continued resident feedback, including one-on-one meetings with folks who live along the channel. So with that design now complete, as Scott mentioned, we advertised this project for bids back in December of last year, and we're expecting to open those bids in February of this year. So those design changes, which Melissa will talk a little bit more about in a second, really include how we plan to reconstruct the concrete channel more efficiently and effectively. For example, rather than working on the entire channel at one time, the contractor is going to construct it in smaller sections of 500 feet at a time. And that really helps to reduce the amount of people and homes that are impacted at any given moment. We also refined how the system will drain into the channel, how we will work with our partners, and how we'll maintain it moving forward. And our bidding strategy for this project, which I know sounds a little wonky, but it really reflects that commitment to making sure that we're moving this forward in the best way. And I'll talk about that after Melissa shares some project details. So I'll now turn it over to Melissa, who's been involved with this project for years, and she's led the team doing the really tough engineering work to make this a reality.
Thank you so much, Emily. Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be back with you all tonight. And as Emily just shared, we're pleased to announce that this project design is complete and we are ready to move on to construction. So let's take a look at the channel cross sections for this project. This project will construct Core Farm Ditch between Bel Air Boulevard and University Boulevard, which will increase its stormwater conveyance capacity during heavy rainfall events. The work will include reconstructing and widening of approximately 3,100 linear feet of the existing concrete line channel. So the concrete lining within the project limits will be removed and then replaced with new concrete lining that will meet our current specifications and standards. This project's also going to increase the width of the channel, which will vary from about 30 to 40 feet at its widest sections. And it's also going to deepen the channel from about 7.5 feet as it stands today to about 10 feet. And this work will ultimately allow the channel to move stormwater out of the area much quicker. So next, let's look at the key design changes since last time we met. This is a difficult project, and frankly, there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to this project design, given some of the challenges we've looked at earlier. There have been several key changes to the design since you last time saw it. You had previously seen a rendering that used a modular block wall system, and that was our original approach to construct this project. The evolved design plans now include the use of a cast-in-place concrete instead. And we were able to alter the approach because both cities have decided to allow natural sheet flow to go directly over the sides of Core Farm Ditch. And that is great news for the community. And we believe that this will give you a better solution for all residents for both cities. This method is going to be less complex to construct, and it's going to work more effectively with each individual property. To simplify, the design's main functionality hasn't changed, but using the concrete instead of the modular blocks will allow us to construct the project more efficiently, and it will benefit more residents. One area that has not changed since we met last time is maintenance. The reconstructed channel will still include improved access for ongoing maintenance activities. You can see the maintenance path between the concrete channel and fences will allow the flood control district employees to access Core Farm Ditch after construction is complete. Preserving and maintaining the channel long-term is one of our main priorities, similar to other projects you may have seen throughout the county. Many residents that back up directly to the channel express concerns about backyard drainage as it relates to Core Farm Ditch. This was a major topic of discussion last time we met, and your concerns were heard. Since then, our team has worked with your city to evolve the design and find a plan that works. Since drainage is now allowed to flow directly over the channel sides into the channel, our contractor will be capping all existing yard drains and pipes at the flood control district right away. You might have some questions about that, and if you do, please feel free to visit the West University Place information table for any questions that might involve your property directly. These next few visuals that we've prepared will show how drainage will look after the project is complete. So like any good drainage story, or frankly a bad story, the story begins with rain. Stormwater adjacent to the channel will begin to flow naturally into the channel over the sides, as you can see here. As mentioned earlier, the rainfall from a particular storm event today, which would result in the water surface elevation in Port Farm Ditch to reach a certain level. But after construction and after the project is complete, that same storm event would result in a lower water level in the ditch. And that essentially is going to reduce the risk of flooding in the area. Finally, as the sun begins to shine once again, the stormwater in the channel will flow downstream where it will empty into Gray's Bayou. So the story doesn't quite end here. Fencing is another key component of the project, and it's going to vary by individual properties. As we stated back in spring of 2024, you will see temporary fencing in place throughout construction. That fence will help secure the flood control district's right-of-way to safely construct the project, and also help to serve as some additional privacy for adjacent homeowners. Following construction, a permanent 6-foot chain link fence will be installed along the channel limits. As a reminder, all encroachments will be removed at the start of construction. Be sure to visit the West U Place information table to discuss any details about any encroachments specifically. During construction, temporary fencing will be in line with the flood control district's easement to provide our team with the safe space needed to construct the project. The 6-foot temporary chain link fence will separate the project site from the residential backyards. The city is currently exploring a privacy fabric to place on the temporary construction fence. The fence placement and distance will vary from lot to lot, but in general, it will be about 10 feet from the new channel to the private property line. Details on the placement of this temporary fencing can be reviewed on an individual lot-by-lot basis with staff here tonight. So after construction, this temporary fencing will be replaced with a permanent 6-foot chain link fence within the flood control district's right-of-way. Again, details on the placement of the permanent fencing can be reviewed on an individual lot-by-lot basis with staff here tonight during the open house portion of the meeting. Access control of the project site was another concern that we heard back in 2024, and many residents had questions for us regarding security during and after construction. The flood control district will have the temporary fencing installed throughout the project's construction that does act as a deterrent in these types of situations. The design plans also call for a gated vehicular access ramp points near West University United Methodist Church and near Bel Air Boulevard. The contractor will also be required to install gates every about 200 to 300 feet along the channel to help deter regular pedestrian access. So this visual here shows what those vehicular access points near Westview United Methodist Church and Bel Air Boulevard could look like once they're installed. And to be clear, there will not be any maintenance access gates installed on any private property. The revisions and additional details that we've shared with you today do not alter the project's results or its effectiveness. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of this project. As mentioned earlier, there is a 60% increase in channel flow area after the project is complete. The reconstructed portion of the channel will increase the channel's conveyance from approximately a 10-year storm event to a 50-year storm event, and that really is a significant improvement for the area. The Flood Control District is an impact agency, as Emily mentioned earlier, and This means that we will never take a flooding problem from one community and move it to another area. And since we can't allow the increased conveyance capacity in Poor Farm Ditch to negatively impact other homes or neighborhoods downstream, this project was engineered to not create an adverse impact or require any additional mitigation as the stormwater makes its way to Gray's Pond. Finally, as we mentioned at the start, ensuring that our crews have adequate maintenance access to Poor Farm Ditch in the future will help ensure that this channel works effectively for many, many years to come. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Emily, and she's going to talk to you about construction timing and next steps.
Thank you. So to get to that 60% increased capacity, we do have to do some construction to get there. So as shared tonight, we have completed the design and we did advertise the project for bid back in December. We'll open those bids in February and begin the process to get a contractor on board. And we anticipate construction beginning this summer, Q2 2026. So once a start date is confirmed, we'll share a construction advisory with the community, and that'll have details like sequencing, schedules, what to expect nearby, and those types of things. Right now, we anticipate construction will last about 4 years on this project, and we'll provide more specifics once that contractor is selected. And I mentioned earlier about an innovative bid process for this effort. We're doing things a little bit differently than we normally do, and we're doing what's called a competitively sealed bid process. And that basically lets us award a project based on the best value combination of 3 key factors. So the first is cost, because of course we have to be good stewards of taxpayer funds. The second is quality and experience. So that's the qualifications of the actual people who are leading the effort. And then schedule and project approach. So that's basically how the contractor plans to deliver the work efficiently and responsibly for the community. The contractor's approach includes important things such as where to stage equipment, how to sequence the project, maintaining channel operations during construction to make sure water can still flow while we're doing this work, and also minimizing impacts to residents and the surrounding community. And then of course throughout the process, safety is paramount. So we also look at all of our contractors' safety records and make sure that they meet our standards. So before we close, I wanted to say, first of all, thank you again for being here tonight. But second, we know that this project is happening very close to people's homes and backyards and daily lives, and that is not something that we take lightly. At the same time, we also know that this is really important work that will help keep this community safer and reduce flood risk for you all and for your neighbors. So as we move forward into construction, we are committed to continuing to listen and respond to concerns, keeping you informed on project progress, and providing advance notice anytime work is happening near your home. We'll also continue to stay very closely coordinated with the leadership of Southside Place and West University to make sure that your leadership always knows what's going on. So we'll now move into the open house portion of the evening. We have subject matter experts available at 5 information tables. So the sign-in table that you started at is table number 1, and that's just kind of general questions about the flood control district or anything that we can give you there. Table 2 is where West University Place representatives are, and that's where you can ask your questions about encroachments or fencing, as those are really efforts that are led by West U. And then tables 3 through 5, you'll see a lot of construction drawings, which is exciting. And so we can really have lot by lot conversations about your property and the design details in your area. And we've got a lot of people floating around. I think everybody has a name tag except for maybe us, delinquents. But ask any of us if you have a question about where to go or who to talk to get the right answer. So Dave, anything you want to add before we push that off?
Sorry. No, thank you everyone for Dave Beach, City Manager for West U. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. As the mayor and everyone said, this has been a multiple decades long process to get to this point. We've, for property owners that live adjacent to the ditch, staff back on January, I think 16th or 17th, hand-delivered a letter and some information on this project requesting if you have some questions or concerns about the project and its potential direct impact on your property. to reach out, and we would set up. I know they talked to some people directly during that walking when they delivered it. And I think we talked to 6 or 7 total property owners so far. So Mike Leach in the back, sitting there as the Public Works Director. If you live directly along the ditch and would like to set up a one-on-one, please get with Mike, and he can arrange a time to go over the encroachments, things like that, if you have any questions. And then when they talked about the fencing and stuff, this new design kind of limits the impact. The old blocks that they talked about really required them to go further back in the property. So by this new design, it really kind of decreased the impact that would have gone onto some private property. So what we're really looking about is fences that might not be on property, might be a little bit over. And so just to clarify, that is what was said in the past. If there's fences that are encroaching onto county property, those will not be replaced as part of the project. That'll be the responsibility of the property owner. If a fence is legally installed and is impacted by the project, then that would be replaced as part of the project. But we can go over those more with you with discussions with those individual property owners. So with that being said, thank you again, and please see you in the hallway and ask your questions.